Numbers chapter 19. The sacrifice of the red cow. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron. He said, "This is a statute of the Lord that the Lord has prescribed. Order the people of Israel to bring you a red cow which has no defect or blemish and has never been submitted to the yoke. You will give it to Eleazar the priest so that it may be taken outside the camp and slaughtered in his presence. Then Eleazar the priest is to take some of the cow's blood on his finger and sprinkle this blood 7 times toward the entrance to the tent of meeting. The cow shall then be burned in his presence, including its hide, flesh, blood, and the offal. Then the priest is to take cedar wood, a twig of hyssop leaves, and a red cord, and throw them on the fire where the cow is being burned. Finally he shall wash his clothing and bathe his body in water, after which he may go back to the camp, but he will remain unclean until evening. The man who has burned the cow shall also wash his clothing and bathe his body in water, but will remain unclean until evening. A man who is ritually clean shall gather up the ashes of the cow and put them outside the camp in a clean place. This must be kept for the ritual use of the community of Israel to prepare the water of purification. The man who has gathered up the ashes of the cow shall wash his clothing, but will remain unclean until evening. This will be an irrevocable statute for the people of Israel, as well as for the alien residents among them. A case of uncleanness. Anyone who touches the corpse of any person whatsoever will be unclean for 7 days. He shall purify himself with these waters on the 3rd and the 7th day, and he will be clean. But if he does not purify himself on the 3rd and the 7th day, he will not be clean. Anyone who touches a corpse, the body of a man that has died, and has not purified himself, defiles the tabernacle of the Lord. Such a person must be ostracized from Israel, because the waters for purification have not been poured over him. He is unclean, and his uncleanness remains in him. This is the law with regard to a person who dies in a tent. Anyone who goes into the tent, or anyone who is already there, becomes unclean for 7 days. Equally unclean shall be every open vessel and pot in the house that has not been fastened with a lid. Anyone in the open country who touches a person who has been killed, or a person who had died, or human bones or a grave, becomes unclean for 7 days. For the unclean you shall take some of the ashes of the cow that was offered as a sin offering in a vessel, and pour running water over them. A ritually clean man shall dip a twig of hyssop in the water and sprinkle it on the tent and everything in it, and on the persons as well over there. And he shall sprinkle it on the one who touched the bone or the dead animal body, or the one slain, or the grave. The ritually clean man shall sprinkle water on the unclean person on the third and the 7th days. So on the 7th day the unclean is cleansed. He shall wash his clothes and bathe himself on this day, and in the evening he will become clean. But if the unclean man does not cleanse himself, he shall be ostracized from the community, lest he defile the sanctuary of the Lord. As long as the water of purification has not been poured upon him, he is unclean. This shall be an irrevocable statute for you. The man who sprinkles the water of purification shall wash his clothes, and those who touch this water are unclean until the evening. Whatever the unclean person touches shall be unclean, and whoever touches it shall be unclean until evening. Numbers chapter 20. Memories of the desert to death of Miriam. The whole community of the people of Israel came to the wilderness of Zin in the 1st month, and the people settled down in Kadesh. Miriam died and was buried there. the waters of Meribah. Now there was no water for the community, and the people banded together and challenged Moses and Aaron. They disputed with Moses, saying, "Would that we had perished with our kinsmen in the presence of the Lord. Why have you led the Lord's assembly to this desert to die here with our cattle? And why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this wretched place? It is no place for grain, or figs, or vines, or pomegranates, and there is not even water for drinking." Moses and Aaron fled from the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces. Then the glory of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord spoke to Moses, "Take your branch and assemble the community, you and Aaron your brother. In their presence command the rock to give forth water, and you will make water gush from the rock for the community and their livestock to drink." So Moses took the branch from before the Lord as he had been ordered. Then Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly in front of the rock and said to them, "Listen, you rebels, shall we bring water for you from this rock?" Moses raised his hand and struck the rock twice with his branch, and then water in abundance gushed out for the community and their livestock to drink. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "You did not trust in me to proclaim my holiness in the sight of the people of Israel. Because of this, you shall not lead this assembly into the land that I have given them." It was at the waters of Meribah that the people of Israel challenged the Lord, and where he showed his holiness to them. Edom refuses passage. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom with the message, "Thus says your brother Israel, you are aware of the trials we had to suffer. Our fathers went down to Egypt, and we lived there for a long time. But the Egyptians maltreated us and our ancestors. Then we cried to the Lord, and he listened to us. He sent an angel to bring us out of Egypt, and now we are in Kadesh, the town which is on the borders of your territory. We request you to let us pass through your land. We will not cross any fields or vineyards or drink any water from the wells, but we will keep to the king's road without turning to right or left until we are out of your territory." Edom answered them, "You shall not pass through my land. If you do, I will come out to attack you." The people of Israel then said, "We will keep to the highway. If we or our cattle drink of your water, we will pay for it. All we ask is your permission to pass through on foot." Edom answered, "You shall not pass through." And the Edomites marched out to meet Israel in large numbers and with a strong army. Thus, as Edom refused to let Israel pass through this land, Israel had to turn away from them. Death of Aaron. The Israelites set out from Kadesh, and the whole community came to Mount Hor. There on the border of the land of Edom and Mount Hor, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Aaron must now be gathered to his people. He shall not enter the land that I have given to Israel, since he both rebelled against me at the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and Eleazar his son and bring them up Mount Hor. There strip Aaron of his vestments and put them on Eleazar his son before Aaron is gathered to his people, for he is to die there." Moses did as the Lord ordered. In the sight of the whole community they went up Mount Hor. There Moses stripped Aaron of his vestments and put them on Eleazar his son, and Aaron died there on top of the mountain. Then Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain. When the whole community saw that Aaron had died, the whole house of Israel mourned him for 30 days. Psalm chapter 62. My soul rests in God alone. In God alone does my soul find rest. From him alone comes my safety. He alone is my rock and salvation, with him as my stronghold. I shall not be overcome. How long will you keep assaulting someone? all of you, to bring him down, like a leaning wall, a tottering fence. Indeed, their plan is to bring him down. They take pleasure in telling lies. With their mouths they bless, but in their hearts they curse. In God alone does my soul find rest. My hope comes from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my stronghold, I will not be shaken. With God rests my salvation and my honor. He is my refuge, my mighty rock. Trust in him at all times, my people. Pour out your hearts before him. God is our refuge. Common people are only a bread. People of rank, merely an illusion. If weighed down, they are nothing, even lighter than a puff of wind. Do not set your heart on extortion or your hopes upon corrupt gain. Even if wealth accumulates, keep your heart detached. God has spoken once, yes, I have heard it twice, that to God alone belongs power, and to God alone belongs steadfast love. You reward each one according to his deeds. Mark chapter 8. Jesus feeds the 4,000. On another occasion there was a large crowd who had nothing to eat, so Jesus called his disciples and said to them, I feel compassion for these people because they have been with me for 3 days and now have nothing to eat. If I send them to their homes hungry, they will faint on the way, because some of them have come a long way. His disciples replied, where in a deserted place like this could we get enough bread to feed these people? He asked, how many loaves have you? And they answered, 7. Then he ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground. Taking the 7 loaves and giving thanks, he broke them and handed them to the disciples to distribute. And they distributed them among the people. They also had some small fish, so Jesus said a blessing and asked that these be shared as well. The people ate and were satisfied. The broken pieces were collected, 7 wicker baskets full of leftovers. Now they had been about 4,000 people. Jesus sent them away and immediately got into the boat with his disciples and went to the region of Dalmanutha. The Pharisees demand a sign. The Pharisees came and began to argue with Jesus, hoping to trap him. They asked for some heavenly sign. Then his spirit was moved. He gave a deep sigh and said, why do the people of this present time ask for a sign? Truly I say to you, no sign shall be given to these people. Then he left them, got into the boat again, and went to the other side of the lake. The disciple had forgotten to bring some bread, and had only 1 loaf with them in the boat. Then Jesus warned them, keep your eyes open and beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and the yeast of Herod. Wondering what he meant, they said to one another, it is because we have no bread. Aware of this, Jesus asked them, why are you talking about the loaves you are short of? Do you not see or understand? Are your minds closed? Do you have eyes that do not see and ears that do not hear? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves among 5,000, how many wicker baskets of leftovers did you collect? They answered, 12. And the 7 loaves for the 4,000, how many did you collect? They answered, 7. Then Jesus said to them, do you still not understand? Cure of a blind man. When they came to Bethsaida, Jesus was asked to touch a blind man who was brought to him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had put spittle on his eyes and laid his hands upon him, he asked, can you see anything? The man who was beginning to see replied, I see people, but they look like trees moving around. Then Jesus laid his hands on his eyes again, and the man could see. His sight was restored so that he could see everything clearly. Jesus sent him home, saying, do not return to the village. Peter's profession of faith. Jesus set out with his disciples for the villages around Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" And they told him, "Some say you are John the Baptist, others say you are Elijah, or one of the prophets." Then Jesus asked them, "But you, who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." And he ordered them not to tell anyone about him. Jesus speaks of his passion. Jesus then began to teach that the Son of Man had to suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law. He would be killed and after 3 days rise again. Jesus said all this quite openly, so that Peter took aside and began to rebuke him. But Jesus, turning around and looking at his disciple, rebuked Peter, saying, "Get behind me, Satan. Your thoughts are not from God, but from man." The demands of discipleship. Then he called the people and the disciples to him and said, "If anyone wants to be my follower, he must forget himself, take up his cross and follow me. Whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. What good is it to anyone to gain the whole world and lose his own self? And what can he offer to buy his own self back? I tell you, if anyone is ashamed of me and of my words among this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will also be ashamed of him when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels."